We were talking before about creating a show in which it evokes the rhythms of real speech, which has been true of all the shows. Even a French farce show, it evokes the rhythms. Doesn't sound like a script. It sounds the way people talk to each other, and yet with a heightened sense. And in one show, you actually address that notion. What is reality like? That's the hour, 15 minutes.
It's just our lives. That's all they want to see. 15 minutes of our lives straight through. No interruptions, no cuts, no nothing. Just you and me, and I'm talking to nothing here.
When you did this, there was no such a thing as reality programming.
Sure, we were light years ahead of our time.
Yeah, and then you deal with the frustration of what it's going to look like. And the more interesting question is, when you put a camera up and people are on camera, how does that change the reality?
Exactly.
It's also just funny to see people trying to be cooler than they are, you know, and that was a lot of it. Two people trying to be...
You were smoking suddenly in that one, right?
I was smoking, I had my shirt unbuttoned, and
who are you?
Yeah. You know what this smoke reminds me of?
What's that?
This biker bar where I used to hang out.
The one you hung out at?
Yeah.
The biker bar? What was that called?
Bikes and things. So the idea, just as we're getting to know these two characters on the series, to try to see who they think the cool versions of themselves are, seemed like a funny thing to write a show about.
And when not doing that, the alternative is, okay, I think it was one take where within the show, where Paul and James said, okay, we're going to do nothing. And then when you just put that consciousness in your head, you realize nothingness is so absurd. I'm going to sit in this chair, listen to let it go for 8 seconds, and it's just stupid and boring. We'll have to be more interesting than this.
Sweetie? Okay, this is already the most boring movie ever made.
I'm sorry.
Your best friend shows up, seeing her opportunity for stardom. Your cousin shows up, seeing an opportunity to promote Buckman's Sporting Goods.
Oh my gosh.
He just works it in, and wardrobe is carefully selected, makeup is done. You can see how seductive fame is.
Hey!
Hey!
What's with this suit?
Oh, no, I was just on my way down to Buckman's Sporting Goods at 18th and Broadway.
So?
So, you know, we've been so busy with all our reasonable prices on parallel service and all.
Also, was the first time, I think, that we had topless nudity.
That's right.
Anne Ramsey, who plays Jamie's sister, came in and did not know, that's what it was, did not know that we were taping for a thing, and said, I'm borrowing your sweater, and we see a naked woman from the back, and I remember
the audience whooped and hawed then. That was okay.
Yes, it was comedy and stripping, which is 2 for 2.
Were there any questions about the nature of that character? I mean, there was one character who used to really get on my nerves. Was your sister.
Lisa, hey, remember that meat packer Daddy told me to stay away from? So I make a date with him last night, right? Since Dennis's wife is back in town, and what am I supposed to do? Sit at home alone playing Hello Kitty? Okay.
It was, you know, hard to be not one of the two of us who there was so much time and sort of care being taken with every move, and then we would want these people to come in and be solid and be funny and have characters that had whole lives of their own, and we're just seeing a couple of minutes of it, and I just thought she really created. I haven't seen that character before or since.
Next thing I know, meat packer comes in, sees this, cops an attitude. So I tell him, it's my brother. He says, cool. We go out for cannolis, and actually he turns out to be a pretty hot guy, even if he does have ties to the mob. I'm meeting him for brunch. Wish me luck.
She was, by design, meant to be irritating, and sort of the thing that was in the pilot. but she could hit your buttons, and there was this history. But every time she came in, often when she came in, it was sort of what was set out in the pilot, that all our relatives and all our friends are, God love them, but they're essentially infringements upon our very, very small, precious together time. And so, yeah, if somebody comes at the door, they should be bringing a problem. Otherwise, they're in the wrong show. You know, if somebody comes in, how's everything? Fine. There's no show. So the more irritating the problem, the better off we are.
Carol Burnett played a character. Carol O'Connor played a character. Almost without exception, people played characters. But there were, as you pointed out to me, maybe 2 episodes where people literally played themselves. One was Bruce Willis playing the part of an actor in the birth sequence, but the other one, even more interesting, was Yoko Ono.
Hi.
Sorry to keep you.
Oh.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor to meet you, and thank you for coming.
Well, it's my apartment.
No, of course it is. I meant thanks for coming in the room.
And this had to do with Paul making a documentary, and he'd read an article about something she was going to do, and so he really wanted, you know, he thought this is interesting, and I think it was Jamie who pushed them to say, you know, he likes your work.
It came out of, I think, Paul's deep love for John Lennon and for Yoko and their work together and separately, and then the episode just sort of started to mirror that. You know, before she showed up, we were very nervous, and the last thing he would have done was written a joke about the Beatles. It was like, don't mention the Beatles.
And I was literally saying that to people. Whatever you do, don't go there.
Don't talk about the Beatles, and don't allude to anything about how she broke up the Beatles, because that's what people say.
Wow,
Listen,
look at
when
this
she gets here, do not ask anything about the Beatles.
Honey, I think I know
No,
enough. not to-
nothing about the Beatles, because people do that all the time, and it makes her crazy.
What are you, her best friend?
She sat and she was very quiet, and our read-throughs were sort of loud and blustery, and she showed up the first day, and she's talking about this loud, and we thought, is this ever going to work? And then I think the first read-through was a little rocky, and we all sat around to talk about what might make it better and what might make her feel comfortable, and I remember her saying, well, one thing that might be funny is that some people, you know, like to make the reference that I broke up the Beatles, and we were all like,
Really?
we can make that joke because we got a team of people ready to make that joke. And so it all came from her.
People never think I'm funny, but I can be funny too, you know.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sure. You know, I suppose it's true that people have a certain image of you.
What kind of image?
What do they have? Who knows? You know, I suppose, you know, not that you were responsible for breaking up the...
Okay.
We do the tags at after the final commercial break, and there's usually a little piece where we also often break the fourth wall, and it's silly or goofy, and we just didn't have it. And we're sitting around, and it was late at the end of the night, and we said, well, what are we going to do? And we're sitting there, and we have Yoko. My goodness, when do we ever get this chance? And she again came up. She goes, well, if I may, you know, John and I always promised each other that whenever we could, we'd get out the message of give peace a chance. Maybe we could all be in bed together. And Helen and I just went,
Seriously?
Okay.
Give us a chance.
That's all we are saying.
and so we're reading the paper, and here was this synchronicity of Paul and Jamie in bed, literally with Yoko Ono between them reading the paper.
Were two people ever happier than...
I think you can actually see it at the end of the take.
We're
One of us
almost
leaned
crying.
forward like...
This is pretty good. This doesn't suck.
And we had done, a year or two early, we had done an episode about her, but without her being in it, that I had gotten some fan letter, and I had gotten from Yoko Ono. She enjoyed a film, and I went to see her. But it was done in a really generous spirit of genuinely admiring them. And I think it was her seeing that one that allowed her to feel safe. And again, nobody had ever asked her. Certainly nobody ever thought of her as being funny.
Everybody's entitled to one bad idea. You know, John once thought that Ringo should be in the front. And I just said, John, come on.
Well, you were right there, because that's a bad idea.
And then we just had these huge laughs off of her generosity, saying, well, poke fun of me and do what you want.
One of the nice things about the Yoko also was that the premise of the film was going to be filming the wind.
That's right.
Now, this is very consistent with the kind of strange art that she
She was
does.
just very willing to poke fun at herself, you know, and
Exactly
that's
so,
the
yeah.
only, if there's one thing you need on your comedy passport, that's the stamp you need, is a willingness to, you know, find out where you're a little too desperate or a little too anything and poke fun at it. So it just shows that, you know, she has that.